Yo, what is going on guys, Flashverse here and welcome back to another video on The Flash, and this will be my part 2 for the What If I Wrote The Flash Season 7 series. And for today's video I'll be sharing with you guys my version of episodes 12 to 18. Now this fanfiction does have two different ways of narrating the story, and that's mainly just because I wanted to focus on the Godspeed storyline, which is why we have added more episodes to that storyline in order to fully flesh out the character of August Hart after he got his memories back. So yeah, for some general plot points I will just brush through them, but for the ones which require more detail I will then dive deeper into those scenes and really make you guys feel that you're there and really envision the story that I had planned to the nearest detail. But before I go over anything, however, you guys don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. So with episodes 12 to 13, I will mainly just brush over the general ideas because, as I said, I really wanted to put the main focus on the Godspeed storyline, which for us, episode 14 is the start of the Godspeed storyline. I will do a quick recap on my version of the Forces storyline just in case those who haven't seen it yet don't want to go through 40 minutes to get an understanding for this part. So Allegra leaves Team Flash, Caitlin and Frost never split. August Hart is a character who appears from episode 4 of the season and he still has his memory loss. That's still the thing we have for our version, but he gets saved by Barry when he's walking around the streets and Abracadabra basically tries to attack him. Barry saves him and August basically uses that as an inspiration to become a speedster who saves people as well. He still has his speed, but he just doesn't have his memories. And eventually he joins Team Flash and trains with Barry. Psyche is now the main villain of the season. He ends up killing all of the forces and absorbs their abilities, as his motivation was to conquer all of the forces. And throughout the episodes, August Hart does kind of get some flickering memories of him as Godspeed, but he just doesn't, entirely remember who he is. And during the finale, Psyche gives August a nightmare which results to him getting his memories back, and that results to him killing Psyche as Godspeed awakens, and that leaves the Flash and Godspeed having a final one-on-one for the finale, and Chilblain is now a Flash villain, not a Frost love interest. So going into episode 12, this episode mainly plays out how it's supposed to be, which is Cisco's goodbye episode, except that they already know that they're moving at the end of episode 11 instead. That was something we added on for the Forces storyline as well, where Team Flash knew in advance that Cisco and Camilla were leaving. At the start of the episode, we have Chester trying to locate August Hart in the Cortex, but he's unsuccessful. He tries to run different algorithms, he tries to run different scans across the city, but August Hart is just not present. And Rainbow Raider 2.0 is just a less cheesy character than originally before. Now episode 13 is now titled Freeze Flash, and this is a different filler episode which we added, and it's obviously a Chilblain filler episode. And over here Barry and Frost search for August, but they bump into Chilblain as he has been planning his revenge ever since their last encounter, but also he was never put back into prison after escaping during season 7 episode 11. Ever since Chilblain got away from the hands of Frost and Cisco, he has been breaking into labs and stealing tech to upgrade his gauntlets to take down the Flash. The episode is mainly dedicated to the Flash and Frost working together to take down Chilblain, so essentially it's the same premise as episode 7, where Barry investigates a recent break into a lab and he works with Team Flash to find clues and to track down Chilblain's location, and eventually Chilblain gets defeated and he gets locked back into Iron Heights. Now episode 14 is now Enemy at the Gates, and the episode begins with a very ominous opening as we cut to Barry and CCPD filling in some files. He hears a voice around the room calling Dad. Barry is in deep confusion as he sees his daughter, Nora, standing right in front of him. The general idea of this scene still plays out the same, so it's still going to be a dream sequence. The episode would mainly play out the same during the start, so Barry still has the awkward encounter with Cecile, but one thing we got rid of was the whole Chilblain and Frost romance, so Chilblain isn't in this episode at all. The Joe and Kramer storyline plays out exactly how it's supposed to be. Now, instead of the scene where we have the two Godspeed clones running in the middle of the streets in Central City, we cut to CCPD where Barry is running the test to see if Iris is actually pregnant, but all of a sudden, Fear and confusion blended into the halls of the precinct. We hear officers shooting bullets everywhere and crying for backup. Sparks of white lightning are scattering everywhere across the precinct, shattering glass and killing cops, as we see cops being tossed around walls with impact echoing around the room. Barry speeds into the main hall as the Flash to see the massacre. He realizes that August Hart has returned to Central City after hiding for a couple of weeks, but it seems like he brought his clones with him as well. Barry quickly chases after the clones outside of the precinct. He was like an orange lightning bullet chasing after his enemy through the streets and rooftops. However, the Godspeed clones were just way too fast for Barry to catch up to. The episode then plays as normal until the end, so we still have Barry being put into a trap from these Godspeed clones in that nuclear facility area, and then that whole Star Labs shield, that's still a thing, and we will still have the clones breaking into Star Labs. We still have the awesome fight scene between the Flash and one of the clones in the Cortex. However, Barry's rage was like the core of his lightning as it pumped through every nerve in his body like a shock. He yells, "Come on," and flings all three clones across the room as the wind generated by the speed of his lightning felt like a massive fort of weights being thrown at them. As the Flash and Godspeed clones chase after each other across the city in the dark, cold night, Barry became overwhelmed by the amount of Godspeeds chasing after him. Within a blink of an eye, the clones sped past Barry and threw lightning at him, pinning Barry to the ground. There was nothing that could save Barry at this point. As Barry staggers to stand, he is surrounded by 6 Godspeeds, who cast thunderous bolts of lightning at the Scarlet Speedster. They trample over him and beat him up until he falls, motionless and unconscious. Barry wakes up, trapped inside a cold, rusty meta-dampening cage, in some sort of a cathedral, his eyes pierced at the throne as he sees August Hart sitting on it. August approaches Barry. The episode ends with August saying, "Welcome, Flash. There's no escape from here. But hey, we can't all be overachievers. Ah, you must have so many questions. Good thing I have all the answers. This is going to be so much fun." Now, episode 15 is now going to be P.O.W, the episode where Diggle returns. This episode will now be dedicated to Team Flash trying to capture a Godspeed clone to find Barry's location. The episode opens with Barry questioning August's intentions. "Fine, you got what you wanted. I'm right here, your prisoner. Now tell me what you really want." August takes a step forward as he slowly approaches Barry's cage and responds, "My oh my, really direct. We're bound to learn things about each other." As Barry's face reddened, his eyes darted towards August as he orders, "Tell me what the hell is going on." August chuckles and responds, "Or what? You'll force me to? Oh, Flash, you're really delusional. You're not getting out of here." This fueled August's ego to another level as he continued, "I'm the living god of speed, unlike you." Barry's anger is fueling him as he says, "My friends will find me, and then we will stop you." August continues to mock Barry, responding, "You still can't comprehend what you're dealing with." August begins to explain his origin to Barry, who stared in confusion, listening. A physician obsessed with speed and develops a velocity formula, but it wasn't enough as he would never become as fast as an organic speedster. August shoots a lightning bolt at Barry, one that burned and electrocuted, which left him screaming in pain as he stained Barry's suit. Wally West is called upon as they need help from a speedster to take down Godspeed and find where Barry is being held. Diggle works with Team Flash to capture Godspeeds to find Barry's location. The episode mainly plays out the same, except it will be Wally West doing all the speedster stuff. As the wind howled through the rooftops of the buildings, during the clear day, we see Wally running around the city as he attempts to draw the clone's attention. Chester replicates the Godspeed screech through Wally's earpiece, which echoed around the city due to Wally's immense speed. Eventually, he is chased after by one of the Godspeed clones, just like the original. Wally's movements, however, were so fluid as if gliding through the wind, preventing the Godspeed clone from catching up. As Wally nears the trap point, he phases down into the sewers, leading into Godspeed being frozen in the entropy trap. We do still have all the Joe and Kramer stuff playing out as normal. As the Godspeed clone awakens inside the meta-dampening cell in Star Labs, Wally questions Godspeed about Barry's whereabouts. The difference from this scene, however, is that Wally is less naive than Barry, so he is aware that the clone is trying to escape. He will use this as an advantage to allow him to escape and follow him to where Barry could potentially be held. and the plan escalates exactly how he envisioned it to be. Wally finds Barry's location in a cathedral. He goes inside and sees nothing, an empty throne room, no Godspeed surrounding the perimeter, just Barry being held captive in a cage. As Barry turns around to see Wally coming to rescue him, he quickly yells, "Wally, no, it's a trap." And all of a sudden, a wave of Godspeed howled inside the cathedral surrounding Wally. The Godspeed clone he let escape knew Wally was following him. However, Wally always had a greater connection to the Speed Force than Barry. Although he wasn't faster, he was able to pull some cool tricks that even Barry couldn't do. He chuckles as he vibrates his body as fast as the lightning circulating around his body, until he becomes a huge blur of yellow lightning circulating across the room. August Hart stands in confusion as Wally's yellow lightning scattered through the cathedral, reverberating off the walls. He orders his clones to attack Wally, however, Wally was unstoppable. A sudden sense of confusion escalated amongst the clones as we see Wally creating 9, maybe 10 mirages of himself. The clones were overwhelmed by the immense speed Kid Flash was moving around the cathedral with his mirages. There was nothing that could stop him, his power ever growing with each step he took. As Wally's mirages distracted August Hart and his clones, this gave Wally enough time to free Barry. As white and yellow lightning induced through the clones and Wally, shining throughout the cathedral, August notices that the Flash has escaped, his face full of anger. His body electrocuted like no speedster has ever done and unleashes the most thunderous wave of lightning a speedster has ever done, thrusting everyone, his clones, Barry and Wally, onto the wall as all of his mirages imbued back onto his body. The two speedsters struggled to get up, but this also caused a massive drain in August's speed. He needed to run away, recharge, and find a new plan to get what he wants. Back at Star Labs, Barry and Wally reunite with Iris as well as the rest of the team. He also thanks Wally and Diggle for their help. Wally says that he plans on sticking around for a while as Barry will need all the speedster help he could get to stop this war. Bart and Nora do not appear in this episode, and the episode ends with Joe and Kramer as they're about to leave the forest, and this is when August, as Godspeed, thrusts Joe onto one of the tree trunks. He shatters a couple of his ribs, and he grabs hold of Joe and speeds him away, as the episode ends with Kramer shouting, "Joe!" Now, episode 16 is a whole new episode we created, and this is titled The God of Speed. Now, the episode opens in the setting Central City 2049, and over here we see a man in a futuristic looking lab. There's a desk and hundreds of glass booths, chemicals and test tubes. We see the man walking into one of these glass booths as he pushes a button that scans his entire body and abilities. Then in the second booth, the device prints a human and places the Godspeed suit on it. The clone walks out and screeches. The man is revealed to be August Hart, as this is a flashback of him creating his Godspeed clones. He smiles and runs out of the lab. The flashback then cuts to Central City 2020. It's nighttime. We see an empty road as the wind slithered through the air, creating a breeze, making leaves move off the ground. The camera focuses on the picture news box, and we see a newspaper headline about the Flash fighting Mirror Monarch. A huge wave of a Speed Force portal opens in the middle of the road, and a white lightning speedster running out of the portal as his lightning transitions to blue. As this happens, his speed glitches and causes him to crash onto a trash can near the cathedral. He gets up looking clueless, almost like he doesn't know where he is. He continues to observe the setting until a sudden beam of orange lightning shoots up into the sky in the distance and expands into green, blue, red, and yellow lightning. And we have August uttering, "Where the hell am I?" August says this in a worried and confused way. We cut back into present day 2021 as we see August running into Central City from the forest and back into a warehouse. He drops Joe off in the cell in an abandoned warehouse and orders his clones to cause chaos across Central City and bring him the Flash. We then have the original opening scene for episode 16 over here, where the Godspeed clones are traveling around the city and causing chaos. We then cut to the Cortex, where Team Flash discuss how they're going to take down Godspeed, especially with his clones outnumbering the two speedsters, Wally and Barry. Barry talks about how there isn't enough speedsters to prevail this fight, until Caitlin responds, "Actually, there's one more." She tells the team that they could get Garrick's help in Keystone City. A moment of confusion materializes as Barry realizes that Jay must have ended up in Earth Prime post-crisis. Iris, with her face full of panic and fear, rushes into the cortex as she utters, guys, you gotta see this. As Chester pulls up the news from the monitor, the team glance at the monitor, seeing Godspeed's clones destroying buildings and lighting the city on fire with words saying, "Give me the Flash." The Godspeeds were an enemy of terror. Barry and Wally panic as the civilians are dependent on the Flash to save them from the ongoing Godspeed massacre. Barry looks at Wally as he puts on his flash ring and says, "We need to go, now." They both nod and hurry to Keystone City to retrieve Jay. We cut to Joe and August having a conversation in the dirty warehouse. The room was dark as the confusion in Joe's head, with very minimal amount of light, only enough for him to see that he's trapped in a cage with Godspeed standing opposite him. Drops of water are raining from the ceiling. As Joe struggles to stand, August reveals his plan to use Joe as bait to steal Barry's speed and then kill him when the time comes. Everyone's biggest weakness is their father. Barry will come here, and once I trick him and get what I want, I will kill him right in front of you and his pathetic Team Flash. Joe struggles to speak due to his broken ribs. However, he says, You're right on one part. Barry will come here, but he will stop you." The room begins to fill with white light as August charges up some lightning and settles onto Joe's body. August, as his ego continues to fill him, assures Joe that Barry will die after he gets what he wants. Barry and Wally run through Keystone City into Jay's lab and see that Jay is already suiting up and he's ready. "I've already seen the news, kid. I was heading to Central City right now to help you guys," says Jay. Jay continues to speak as he tells Barry that all of a sudden, his Speed Force connections seem to be stable as he regained his abilities. Barry and Wally give Jay the rundown on everything that is happening, and Barry tells them to run around the city to lure the clones out of the city and into the middle of nowhere, far from causing the massacre. As they begin to execute the plan, while running around Central City chasing Godspeed clones and saving people, Barry gets a sudden call from Iris in his earpiece. She tells him that Kramer asks for both of them to CCPD, and it's an emergency that can't wait. Barry tells Jay and Wally to continue with the plan until he's back. Barry goes to CCPD and changes into civilian clothes. He goes into the captain's office to see Kramer and Iris sitting down, looking disturbed. He sits down and Kramer explains to them that while they were investigating, a white-suited speedster came and kidnapped Joe. Barry and Iris soak in the devastating news as Barry's face, now full of sorrow, doesn't know what to do. It was like a game of chess where Barry has now been put on check by his enemy. As Barry leaves the precinct with Iris, he promises her that he will do everything in his power to bring Joe back. Barry quickly runs back into the field and over comms tells Jay and Wally that Joe has been captured. Wally, now filled with anger and hatred, doesn't think properly. He has been caught off guard as he was being chased by a clone around the city. With immense speed, the clone speeds past Wally like a white javelin and thrusts Wally onto a car nearby, causing a dent. Wally crumbles to the floor as the Godspeed clone has Wally in place, immovable, while releasing a Godspeed sonic beam, draining Wally of his speed. As Barry saves a bunch of civilians in harm's way within just a blink of an eye throughout the city, he checks up on Jay and Wally to see how they're doing. Jay reveals that he's dealt with the clones that were chasing after him, but there was no response from Wally. Barry repeatedly calls his name, with each time changing emotion, first concerned, then confused, and then angry and upset, but there was no response. Chester says that Wally's signal went offline and tells Barry to head to his last location to check up on him. Barry and Jay run there but see nothing. He observes the scene and sees a dented car with Wally's emblem lying on the ground. Jay responds, "Maybe Wally left it there on purpose to tell us that the Godspeeds have him in their grip." Barry and Jay split up and search the city for Wally. They search rooftops, underground areas, but there's no luck. As Jay searches the corner of the city, he stumbles across a couple of Godspeed clones. As Jay approaches the clones, he reaches his hands out, getting ready to punch. He's able to connect his punch with one of the clones, flinging the clone across the streets, but the other clones speed around Jay and punch him with immense speed. It felt like Jay was being hit by a sack of bricks, as the clones were punching Jay everywhere around his body. Jay falls to the ground, beaten up and bruised. It's up to the Scarlet Speedster and the rest of Team Flash to save them. As Barry continued to sweep his corner of the city, Chester through comms warns Barry that Jay could have been in trouble as he suddenly vanished from the radar. Barry heads over to Jay's last location, only to find no one. A moment of concern sparks out of Barry as he knows what happens to Jay. It's now been Jay, Wally, and Joe, and it could also happen to his friends. When Team Flash gather around to meet up in the Cortex, Barry instructs all of Team Flash, including Iris, to leave Central City and get away as far as possible. At first, they refuse. Caitlin mentions that Barry would need their help to find the others. However, Barry cannot take the risk of his friends staying, knowing that August Hart already has 3 of the closest people to him in his grip. 2 father figures and 1 brother. He cannot afford to lose the rest of the family. After a bit of arguing, the team eventually agreed to leave and make their way to Star City. Barry heads over to the speed lab as we see his orange lightning emit around the room as Barry's running loops around the track. He needs to get faster to make sure he can stop the Godspeed war. An alarming bell begins to echo throughout the building as Barry rushes to the Cortex to check it out. August Hart is here, up in the roof of Star Labs. As Barry rushes to August's whereabouts, he begins to ask if Jay, Wally, and Joe are okay. August doesn't give him a proper answer. He chuckles and taunts Barry with the fact that they could either be dead or alive. Barry clenches his fist as he takes a step forward towards his enemy. I swear if you did anything to them. You what, huh, Flash? Kill me? We both know you aren't capable of that. And even then, you need me alive, Flash. I'm the only one who knows where your friends are. Barry's rage begins to set out lightning across his body. His crimson-colored suit now covered with sparks of orange lightning circulating around his body. First his torso, then his arms, traveling towards his fists. I'm only going to say this once more. Where are they? August laughs and he responds, I don't know. Barry, now filled with anger, takes a swing at August. However, he anticipates the punch coming. August ducks underneath the lightning punch. The punch was almost like if Barry was an electrifying bullet about to connect with him. August thrusts Barry across the other side of the roof as his punch felt like darts being thrown at him, with white flares of lightning stabbing Barry's chest, cutting him short of his breath. As Barry staggers to stand, August casts a thunderous bolt of lightning as his Godspeed mask begins to form onto his face. Barry phases through the lightning bolt as he in return casts an orange bolt of lightning towards August, almost like spiderwebs about to reach him. This was too quick for August to anticipate as he falls to the ground. As Barry approaches August Hart to knock him out with a punch, he observes a building in the distance crackling and crumbling onto the ground as an earthquake-like sound echoed from a distance. August laughs and says, "Oh Flash, you continue to amaze me. Did you really think I would come here without a plan B?" Barry struggles to articulate his words as he realizes that Godspeed must have sent his clones to destroy a whole building so that he has a backup plan in case things went south. Barry urgently needs to birth his next thought quickly. Either stop August or save hundreds of lives. Without hesitation, Barry rushes towards the crumbling building with immense speed. Barry runs into the falling down building as ashes begin to ascend. He saves all the civilians in flash time, whether they were trapped by the ceiling collapsing on them, whether they were imprisoned in a way where they could not make it out alive, or whether it was people falling down to their death. He also evacuates the perimeter, makes sure that nobody else is in danger, all in just within the blink of an eye. The Flash was the shining beacon of hope these people desperately needed. He then stops to check if there's anything he missed. He spots a man falling to his death. As Barry charges up to gain enough velocity to form a vortex with his twirling hands, a Godspeed clone rushes past and flings Barry towards the falling building as he's thrusted onto crumbled concrete. Barry makes huge impact, almost like he's experienced a car crash. Barry shatters his knee and screams in pain and agony. He is immovable. The scream of the person falling for his death bounced off the concrete floor and died into the soon-to-be blood-stained floor. Barry's face is filled with sorrow and tears. He struggles to walk due to the immense pain of his knee, but he limps towards the person's dead body as he utters, I wasn't fast enough. I was too weak," as he crumbles, heartbroken. The episode ends with every member of Team Flash leaving the city altogether in a big Star Labs van to hide in the safe house which Cisco prepared them temporarily during their Star City visit. As they drive past the empty road making their way to Star City, Iris expresses her concerns to Chester, Cecile, and Caitlin. They shouldn't have left Barry alone. The team begun to get overwhelmed by the army of Godspeeds hurling around the car as we see streaks of white lightning passing through door after door. The Godspeed clones grab hold of every member of Team Flash: Chester, Cecile, Caitlin, and Iris. August Hart now has every member of Team Flash in his grip. We then cut to Barry in the speed lab, recovering as he's still feeling the grief of not being able to save the person from his death. Godspeed was a machine who was just checkmated the Scarlet Speedster. A sudden beam of purple lightning rushes past Barry as we see Nora West Allen arriving from 2049. The same scene as the original would take place, with Nora and Barry reuniting, and then with Barry meeting Bart for the first time. However, the stakes are now higher as Barry needs to save Wally, Joe, and Jay, and he doesn't know yet, but he's also gonna have to save the rest of the Team Flash members as well.